wanted to make sure. I'm like, I have like 3 different presentations I have right now. So I was like, is this the right one? Okay. So I wanted to kind of, both of you have heard this information, but anybody else listening in may not. And so I wanted to be able to share a lot of that purpose of why the PAR is good. I think I told Kyle, the main reason I wanted to do this is I want it to not be the state assessment test. You know, I want it to be the, you know, this is a good screening protocol or assessment to look at and help us make decisions for reading accommodation. So the difference between the two, the PAR is a paper version that is free, and the link down here, it has that, but anybody in our co-op could email me and request a notebook. I still have some notebooks available, the free version, and then Kyle actually has the link to the passages and stuff on our website. And then the UPAR is the only part that's added. The U stands for universal. So that means that it's a computer-based version. So, and we have some, like, I guess, free access, or I should say paid access in our co-op right now for K through 8 I can do, but I don't have a high school availability yet. So I think we're going to work on that for next year. But just to, I'm going to go through some examples here. In I like to explain when I'm telling adults about the PAR, I like to, and teachers, I like to explain it how I explain it to the kids. And so when I go into the classroom, or I sit down with an individual child, if I'm doing the paper PAR, I started using it this way to explain it. I'm like, I tell the kids, I'm like, okay, we're gonna get to go on a learning journey today. And what that means is you guys are going to do an activity that helps you understand how your brain best understands information that either you read or that gets read to you. And it's going to tell you which way your brain understands things better. And a lot of times the kids, you know, the older kids will say, oh, that's just a test. But I try to encourage them, and I continue on, and I'm like, so you're going to get a couple different ways that you're going to go through some reading activities. One of them is going to be, you're going to be given choices of a passage to read at your reading level that your teacher, you know, gave to me. So if you're reading at 4th grade, I'm going to give you a choices for 4th grade reading passages. And then I will ask you the questions. So on all the parts, that's the paper part, I say I will, or the other part, I'll say the computer will ask you questions about it after you get done reading it. And then after that, you're going to get to hear a human voice, or it will be my voice if I'm doing the paper version. And it's going to read to you. It's just going to be like you hit a play button. It's like you're listening to music, but it's a story. You also get choices. It's going to give you a passage at your grade level. And then it will read it to the questions to you that you'll have to answer. If you do well on that, you're going to get more passages at those levels, and it's going to take you up, kind of like stepping stones. So you get to see how high you can comprehend information at what grade level. The same thing is going to get to happen for when you get a text reader. So that means a computer voice reading to you. And the difference with this one is it also highlights it. So the sentence might be in blue, and then the word that as it's going is going to track in yellow. And so you're going to get to be able to watch it and listen. And then it's going to ask you questions again. Same thing. It might move you up levels if you do really well. This is really good and fun information to share with parents and teachers, because the better you can listen and show us and give us your best effort, then we know how well your brain is working at understanding information. And so that's kind of how I explain it to the kids. And they seem to kind of understand that. Of course, if they're really young, I kind of bring it down a notch, just gauge who you're working with. But there really isn't like a script. You know how like when we give a formalized assessment, there's not a real script, but that's kind of why I like to share. I learned this through a group I'm part of, and I liked the guy's explanation, so I went with it. I don't know if we're going to look at a couple different UPAR and one PAR result that I uploaded, but this is a 5th grade student. So that's kind of noted with the smiley face. And his teacher reported to me when I put the information in the computer that he was independently able to comprehend and read at 4th grade level. So that's where I put the passages to start with his silent read. And that matched up what the UPAR told us. And a lot of times it does. What the teachers, sometimes it also depends, like if it's a new passage and a kid really struggles with reading, it might be a little lower, but for the most part, this matches up. But he was able to get up to 6th grade with a human voice accommodation, and then up to 8th grade with a text reading accommodation. So this kiddo, like in the middle of it, he was in his resource room doing this with other students, and he like kept looking at me kind of like, ah. And I was like, keep going, you're doing really well. And when he was done, like he had the biggest smile on his face. And the other piece of this was I shared this with his mom, and he took a picture and put this on his phone and like had that as a screenshot. So, you know, that's pretty cool that he was so proud of that. It just kind of helps click and help these kids be like, okay, you are smart. You are able to do this. You just struggle with reading. So I have more reasons to go along with this. And here we have more PAR results. These were both from I have a team at Hayes Middle that is doing a co-teaching classroom that is helping me do an Access for All group. That's why we have the UPAR available for their grade levels. And I did the whole classroom. And I'm giving you 2 examples. This first one was one on a girl on an IEP. You can see she was 7th grade, her reading level was at 4th grade for silent reading or independent. She went to grade level with a text reading accommodation. So that was also really cool results for this little girl, because she was so proud of herself that when I kind of had talked about like what a text reader might, what maybe something they've seen before, and I talked about Hoopla, and so she was so excited. She told me she was going to go home and go to the library and get connected with Hoopla at home. And then there's this kiddo, typical, because this classroom was a classroom full of, you know, a general education classroom. It's mixed with, it has a special education teacher and then a general education teacher working together. But this was a typical 7th grade child that reads at 7th grade level, but was able to go clear up on both of the accommodations with a human voice and a text reader to get to 12th grade. Even those kids, I think I have about 4 of these kids that performed like this. They were like super interested and proud and intrigued by this. So this is part of like some of the things I like to share about why for universal design for learning, like this is why this is good to actually give this accommodation for all students, which is why I like that Kyle has purchased Read and Write for all of us, because it actually takes away that barrier for all kids if it's an option. And because we think about it, some of our texts that we read and that we provide for kids is above all kids' reading level. So this would just can take away that barrier for kids. I love, this is something that's been really fun for me to see when I give to whole classrooms. And this was that data circle. So we're able to see 23 kids were given the UPAR in that 7th grade co-teaching classroom. 20 out of 23 benefited. Doesn't mean they needed that accommodation, but 20 out of 23 benefited from some form of accommodation, either human reader or text reader. And then 15 exceeded grade level. 3 had no benefit. 1 got to above independent reading level, which didn't quite get to grade level, but went above where we had put him. And then 4 got to grade level. So they were below their reading grade level. So this is just really cool information to look at. Like these kids, this was a wide variety of students, and it shows, you know, that how many of these kids benefit from just presenting this and giving an additional option to be able to get the input of the data or reading material. So and we can go back and ask questions when we're done. I was just going to get through some of this. And then I did the same thing. There's a 4th grade teacher, general education teacher, and then Mary Wagner, who are participating in this Access for All group too. So it's why we have K through 5 license to do UPAR. And Same thing. This was a typical 4th grade learner. And see where he got. Independent reading, 4th grade, got clear up to 7th grade with a text reader. This kid did not struggle at all, but was able to comprehend pretty high when he was given a text reader and kind of tracking and following along. And that particular kid I was watching because I knew him because he was a speech kiddo of mine. This kiddo was not identified on an IEP, but he was a little behind on his reading. And the teachers had some concerns, but just giving him the text, you can see he went up to grade level. So this is there where I told the teacher, this is a prime example of not all kids need an IEP just because they're a little behind in their reading. You know, we can give them an accommodation, and if they reach where they need to be, that's just something that we can provide for them. They don't need an IEP for that. So that was kind of fun results to see as well. I continued with more of these kiddos in that 4th grade class. So here we have, you know, a same thing. I wanted to show you an example. Not all kids are going to show that a text reader is best. You know, I wanted to give that, like, okay, not that false information of we're just wanting text reader. That is the most, the best way to get kids independent, because, you know, there's less stuff on the internet. There are things on the internet that have human readers, but not as many as text readers, because you need humans to read it and like record it. Whereas text reading, it's picked up by, I know the short term for it, but it's called OCR, something where it embeds and picks up the text and reads it. But human readers, they need human people to read it. So, so this kiddo showed, actually, they did better with a human reader. And some of my younger kids, I do see that. And I talked with some people about in my Access for All group, and we do see it. And sometimes that just means they haven't had a lot of exposure to listening to a text reader. So because they were at this yellow means that it's an instructional. So red would be that it's, you know, they definitely need interventions still, modifications, whatever, but this is instructional. So that still isn't a bad score. Doesn't mean that we can't continue to try to expose and see if they improve. Because some of the teams that are in my Access for All, they are seeing growth over years where their comprehension does increase as they go. Because I mean, it is nice if we can get them to comprehend higher on a text reader, because they can, because we can give them more text that way. And then I did want to share, you know, again, here's one kid, again, just human reader. This kiddo struggles significantly. And so I just wanted it out there that, you know, this helps us to make good decisions. This tells us right now what we're doing for this kid. We're reading aloud is probably what we need to be doing for this kid. And we can continue with exposure for others. So just wanted to give a variety of results. Very similar to me. This was interesting that both of my data circles were very similar when I gave to general education classrooms. We're around that 86% mark. Thought that was interesting. 19 out of 22 benefit from an accommodation and can get higher. Same 15 exceed grade level, 4 got to grade level, 3 no benefit. So I just want to see, eventually I would like to do more and more classrooms so we can see and show, like, you know, this is showing that actually all kids benefit from this, but we do have some kids that need it. So we can use the PAR for UPAR and PAR for lots of reasons. This will be, I won't read it, but I just wanted to include it so everybody has it. I know Kyle sent this out a while ago when a teacher had asked how she should write up the PAR or the UPAR, and then maybe what you could write in the accommodation. So I just wanted to kind of give that as how I wrote that up, helped a teacher write this up. And so he had shared that out, and I wanted that included in the slides, which I'll give the slides to you too, Kyle. And then I wanted to go, like, I didn't want to let the paper PAR get a bad name, like, oh, that's just a lot of work. I don't really want to do this, because there are a few benefits to the paper PAR. So UPAR benefits, test multiple students at once. Literally 30 kids can sit in the classroom and you can test them. Tracks the data easily for you, gives you those fun data circles. You know, you have those nice, pretty graphs right when you're done. You'll see the next page. My graph is not so pretty. I even tracked the one on the wrong line, but But anyway, and then of course, less prep time. Basically, all I need is the kids' names and the grade level and their reading level. And then I'm ready to go. And I put that in the computer. Paper PAR, I have to be a little more prepared. And so it takes a little more prep with the book and getting their passages somewhat ready, but it is free. But another big one, and this is probably one of my favorite things, and I'll kind of explain that on the next page. You can get more information about comprehension concerns. So you can kind of narrow down some areas and kind of see a pattern between the silent, human, and text reader with comprehension. And I'll kind of explain that next. And then you can also set the pace a little easier. Like you can log out of the UPAR and log back in. But, sometimes if you're like, okay, this kiddo's getting kind of fatigued, you need a little break, because it's a lot to sit there and listen, especially if they're getting high, you want to get the best performance. So I just have felt sometimes when I do the paper PAR with a kid, I can pace them a little bit better. This is the UPAR. This is where I messed up. This whole column is supposed to be under the text reader. I just noticed it when I went through this today. But I was kind of in a hurry, I guess. This is a 9th grade student. I just wanted to give you, show you what it looks like with these results. A 9th grade student that was teacher reported reading at 1st grade. This is the type of thing where I told you sometimes it doesn't match up. But it was also a cold read for this kid, and he significantly struggles reading. He did not do that great with a human reader. I did on all of these passages tell him he can go and look back into the passage. The human reader, I said, you can point, and ask me to reread something, because that's what they can do with a text reader. And I don't know if, we are still kind of building rapport with each other. Or he just felt more comfortable knowing he could independently do that. He did go back and re-listen on these passages. And so that was kind of an independent strategy I got to observe with him. But he was able to get to 7th grade comprehension with a text reader. And he was so excited about this, here we are thinking this kid, look how low that is. And he can comprehend at close to grade level. So, and didn't even do that bad here. So, this is the pieces I was talking about where you can look at comprehension. So I only did the back page on this one, but so you can look at, so when you hit correct, incorrect, well, you can go through and then you start down here, you have this little graph where you fill out main idea. How many main ideas did they get correct? Usually it's just the one, but facts, maybe 3 or 3 correct. Whatever. And then you look back as you go and you're like, oh, wow, actually they missed almost all the vocab on all 3 types of passages, silent reader, this. So this is a comprehension issue or a comprehension concern that we need to work on, we need to work on helping this kid identify vocabulary, or, this kiddo cannot identify the main idea. We need to, they did okay on some of the other parts, but this is a struggle for them. So that's some of my main reasons why I like the paper PAR, and it has some value to me because when I give it, I like to have that extra information. I think that's it. Yep, that's okay. I thought that was close to 15 minutes, Kyle, was it? Okay.
Very good. Thank you for sharing, Andrea. Any questions from those that are here, or any other discussion you want to have?
I have some questions.
Yeah.
Okay, Andrea, I know you said there's not a formal script that you use when you're explaining that, but you did have a lot of explanation when you were explaining that to kids. Do you kind of have that written out somewhere?
I don't. I can write it out, what I said. Yeah.
Okay. Just because off the top of I started writing down what you were saying, but I was like, I can't get all that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That's actually a really good idea, Lacey, because I'm sure, that would be something. I know if I'm super comfortable giving it, but I know it's something I've given a lot. So yeah, I can type that up.
Well, or even if you could just, talk it into Siri on your phone and send it.
Yeah.
So you don't have to take the time to to write it out.
Oh yeah, all right. Yeah, I'll do speech to text.
There you go. Then on, can you go back to your second,
Yep.
I think it was the second or third slide. It had 2 students on there.
1 second. Hold on. Let me stop share here and get there and get out of my, there we go. I'm just going to go up into my slides and hopefully be able to let you guys see if you can see the smaller version. So would it be this kiddo or is that too small?
No, it's slide number 3.
Okay.
Yep, that one right there.
Okay.
Okay, so you see how not necessarily on the first kiddo, although it does it on the text reader, but on the second kiddo, you're going every other one, as opposed to everyone, or every grade level. So does the UPAR automatically choose to bump them up 2 grade levels at a time, or?
I think it really kind of depends, because there's also some where it doesn't do that. So you, if I go back to this one, see,
Yes.
it did not, but you will see, I don't really know their formula, and that could be a question. Sometimes we meet, we have met with the UPAR people. That could be something I could ask them, because you'll see here on this kiddo, he was 75% here. So they just went up 1 grade level.
Okay.
Where these kids were reaching 100%, 90%. So I think that could be, unless Kyle, you remember hearing anything about that?
I don't, but looking at the pattern, it looks like if they scored above 90%, they jump 2 grade levels. But if they score below 90%, but above 80%, they go up 1.
But it is a decision. I mean, it is, the UPAR computer makes that automatic decision, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you said that, like with the UPAR, you can go in and do 30 kids at the same time. How do you do the human reader for those kids at that time?
So that's the UPAR. That's only for when you do the universal one. The paper one, you can't do that many at a time. Does that make sense?
So, but I mean, the UPAR, the human reader, is that
it's on there? Yeah, it's a human reader on. Those are recorded passages with a pre-recorded human voice.
So it's not you directly.
Yep.
It's the human voice, not the text voice, which is more robotic, I guess.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
And when it's a human voice, they cannot provide the highlighting of the sentence in the word, because it's not a predictable pattern. Right. Whereas a text reader can provide that, because the computer can have a predictable pattern for that.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. You answered all my questions.
Okay.
One question I had is, I noticed on a few of them it mentions like it was narrative text or informational text. Have you had any teams use that and make different accommodation recommendations based off of the type of text?
No, and that's really, and like I was kind of thinking somebody might ask that, because I thought of that myself a little bit, because it is basically based on like preference of the child. But that's a really good question to ask. Like,
I mean, I'm thinking like, especially when you get into like the high school or even middle school, some of those coursework, there are some classes where if they can handle narrative just fine at that grade level, but the data shows that informational text is harder. We know that there's a grade level gap of understanding generally, but if we see that the text reader or different types of text readers or read alouds work better for certain types, if that would be something to consider.
Yeah.
So I don't know if, again, how much data there is on using different
there might be
tools or different strategies for different types of text, but just curious.
I know one of the reasons that when I originally got a chance to meet with Cindy Malone about this was the reason she wanted more districts to do this and more classes to do it was UPAR was wanting more data. And so that could be something they could be gathering now that would be interesting to know. Like, because when you checked, it was pretty pricey.
Right. Yeah, UPAR is pretty almost cost prohibitive based off of where it's at. if we don't have a clear purpose for how to use it. Us getting to use this through this kind of a pilot program, basically getting free access to it.
Yeah.
That's been huge for us to be able to like feel comfortable that we would use it meaningfully, because again, the price is pretty high. Just a lot of that, and a lot of assistive tech, specialty tech things are, just because the market, there's just not as many people trying to purchase it like other types of tech. So
Yeah, I'm hoping that might change since there's a merger between Text Help, so the Read and Write app and extension that we have gotten, and Don Johnson, who is the makes the UPAR or produces the UPAR, whatever, they are merging. And so I'm kind of hoping, I'm anxious to see like what happens with that, like as far as like text tools and the packages that they might offer districts.
Yeah.
I don't know.
yeah, I think that it'll be interesting to see what that means. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have one more question. If we wanted to use this as part of our comprehensive evaluations when we're doing initial evals, what would be the process for trying to, like, let's say we wanted to use the UPAR rather than paper pencil. What would be the procedure for getting a student logged in or set up so that we could do that with a student? That, you know, they wouldn't have an IEP, obviously.
Yeah. So if you're K-8 right now, you would just have to tell me their first, last name, grade level, and then their independent reading level.
Okay.
I would put that into the computer program, because myself, Chris Schromick, like the schools, and then Julie are the three who can, because our schools have the licenses for that. And so, but I can put it in, and then I would give you the login, like steps to follow.
So I would just take my computer, the kid would get their headset, and I would just log it in, and they would use my computer then to.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's just
And
browser based, correct?
Yeah, and I would be willing to come sit with you and do your first one too, Lacey, but
Okay.
since I come over, but I can change, like I told you, I think we talked about that one other time, trying to get my days switched around.
Well, and can I use an iPad with it?
And they can use their iPad.
They can use an iPad to do it?
Yeah, because
Okay,
that's what I
maybe-
do when I do a whole class, they have to use their device.
Because maybe what I could even do is just have you, if I have my computer, I could have you zoom in,
Oh, yeah.
and they could be using their iPad.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Good. Any other questions or discussion? Awesome. Well, thank you.